The line between freedom and exile in America has never been thinner. What was once celebrated as van life, the dream of roaming free on four wheels, has now become for hundreds of thousands of Americans sleeping in their cars because they can't afford rent. A quiet form of survival on the edge of despair. In 2025, more than 1 million Americans were living in RVs, valves, or cars double the 2018 figure. And the majority of them are not free nomads on social networks, but retirees living on benefits, workers who lost their jobs, couples who can no longer pay rent. Walmart parking lots are now nightlife neighborhoods, wastelands turn into makeshift campsites, and every time the sun goes down, millions of cars turn into mobile homes of a new class, people homeless RV. This is no longer van life, but survival life. A generation once believed that if they worked hard, they would have a home. Now they drive through the roads of their own country, but can no longer call America home anywhere. In today's video, we'll explore inside the RV, homeless crisis, and the dark truth behind America's crumbling mobile dream. The difference between van life and RV homelessness lies in the thin line between choosing and being forced to choose. For those with the means, living in an RV is a luxury travel experience, a way to escape the constraints of the city and enjoy freedom. But for hundreds of thousands of others, RVs are the last refuge after losing their homes, jobs, and the ability to pay for a permanent home. This is forced displacement, a struggle for survival in an America where housing has become a luxury item for the working class. According to information from Urban Institute, since 2020, the number of people living in vehicles has increased by 23%. The root cause is not difficult to realize. Rents increased more than 25% in many urban areas, while the average house price exceeded $400,000, making the dream of homeownership for middle-class Americans a distant thing. Many people are forced to consider an old RV as the only remaining house. But even that choice gradually became impossible. RV parks that were once cheap places to live have now switched to a short-term travel model, causing long-term rentals to double to $1,200 a month. When the last door closes, low-income people have nowhere else but sidewalks, vacant lots, or temporary parking lots. From the outside, an RV parked on the side of the road looked peaceful. But inside, it's a daily battle to find a safe parking spot, a source of clean water, and a night of sleep without knocking on the door in the middle of the night. Many people live without electricity, water, or a stable income. They exist on the margins of society, in gaps that the system no longer wants to see. And even if compared to renting an expensive house, living in a car may seem easier at first, the reality is far different. Amid the skyrocketing cost of living, even minimalist life in an RV becomes an untenable burden. Basic necessities become luxuries. The person living in the car must depend on generators, solar cells, or worn-out batteries that only charge the phone and light a dim light bulb. Fluctuating gas prices make traveling between legal parking lots expensive and exhausting. Campgrounds that used to cost around $500 a month in 2019 now often exceed $900 or more in municipalities. Not to mention the costs of insurance, repairs, and maintenance costs also escalate with inflation. Just a serious failure, a broken wheel, a broken blaster, can cause the car to be both untravelable and uninhabitable, meaning the loss of a single roof. The combination of escalating costs and deteriorating living conditions is pushing thousands of people beyond their physical and mental limits. They live among the noise of the highway between the summer heat and the winter cold, trying to retain some self-esteem while society calls them wanderers in the grey zone of society. They are not adventurers. They're real homeless people. It's sad that what was once a special lifestyle is now a means of survival. When people mention the word Skid Row, the image that appears is often the famous neighborhood in Los Angeles, where all the lives left behind converge: social evils, unemployed people, homeless veterans, and faces who have forgotten the meaning of tomorrow. But now, America is seeing a new version of Skid Row, no longer limited to a few California neighborhoods, but stretching across the country, from parking lots in Arizona to suburban streets in Oregon. It's mobile Skid Row, a fringe society erected with rotten RVs and the broken American dream. RV homelessness, living in car because of losing house, is becoming the clearest reflection of middle-class breakdown. These mobile neighborhoods are springing up everywhere, under bridges, behind yards, or on the edge of luxury residential areas. From afar, long lines of RVs parked close together like a temporary campground. But when approaching, people only saw windows covered with old blankets, plastic water tanks, and dim lights coming from the LED light that was about to run out of battery. There, humans don't live. They're just trying to survive. Those are not voluntary wanderers. They used to be citizens with jobs, addresses, and electricity and water bills in their names. Many veterans who served in the military now have to sleep in the car they bought with their pension. Some people are elderly people, living on a subsidy of less than $1,000 a month, not enough to pay rent in cities where rents have exceeded $2,500. There are young families who lose their homes after a $200 rent increase or lose their jobs, now taking their children to sleep on the back seat of an old truck. In an America that once boasted that everyone had the opportunity to start over from scratch, now thousands of people have to live in fear of being chased away every time the police knock on the car window in the middle of the night. This is not an adventure, a middle-aged man who used to be a driver said. This is a forced relocation. From the city to the suburbs, from quiet residential areas to empty lots next to the freeway, they are gradually pushed to the edge of both literally and figuratively. The streets that were once crowded with people have now become neighborhoods with no address. Outside, food trucks and tourists still pass by, and inside, these people live without being counted in any official statistics. No water, no electricity, no fixed address. They are not only deprived of ownership, but also the right to be recognized as part of society. A 60-year-old woman said she passed Skid Row when she was young and felt scared. I thought, how can people live like that? Now I know the answer. She lives in an old RV, parked next to the grocery store where she used to work part-time. Every morning, she cleaned the car windows and adjusted the curtains, as if trying to maintain the last bit of dignity amid the chaos. Nowadays, the concept of Skid Row is no longer just a place name, it has become the state of existence of an entire class of people. When the cost of living far exceeds income, when housing becomes a privilege instead of a basic right, then these Skid Row mobile are the inevitable result. They used to be working class, are now just temporary guests in their own homeland. They don't need pity, they just need to be seen. But in a society accustomed to turning away from misery, those old cars are still quietly parked on the side of the road, as a reminder that America's glory is reflecting on the cracked glass of a rusty RV. If Skid Row was once a street, then today, perhaps the whole of America is gradually becoming a giant slum, where people live temporarily in memory of a bygone dream. The RV crisis has no random effects. It picks the right groups of the weakest who can no longer afford to stand in the midst of the price, debt, and old age spiral. Each aging car carries a story not about street runners traveling, but about citizens who have contributed their lives to this country, now sleeping amid the roar of engines and streetlights quietly shining through the dusty glass door. Elderly people are the hardest hit group. More than 15 million Americans over the age of 65 rely on Social Security for an average of just $1,270 per month, while rents in many cities have surpassed that number. They are forced to leave the apartments they used to stay in to live in old RVs. This is not a retirement plan. This is the final way out, where each passing day means choosing between buying medicine or refueling, between a hot meal or a cold-free night's sleep. In temporary parking lots in California or Arizona, people see many silver-headed roofs persistently cleaning, folding blankets, hanging small curtains on windows, and trying to maintain some remaining dignity. Lone parents and working families are no exception. 43% of single-parent households now spend more than half of their income solely on paying for housing. When landlords raise prices or suddenly send eviction papers, they have nowhere to go. For them, an RV, no matter how dilapidated, still has four walls, a roof, and a temporary sense of security. Many children grow up in cars, do homework on folding tables, and hear the sound of generators instead of air conditioning. For their parents, every night without a knock on the door was a small victory. The veterans who protected America are now the ones forgotten by America. Despite a series of support programs, there are still more than 35,000 homeless veterans as of 2023. Many of them live in vehicles, struggling with PTSD, with medical bills and sleepless nights. They used to wear military uniforms and were greeted by parades, but now have to hide in dark parking lots, avoiding the eyes of passers-by. Some put old service-era pictures on the dashboard, as if to remind themselves that they used to be respected, used to be valuable. Unemployed people and seasonal workers are largely victims of recent layoffs, is also drifting along the crisis stream. When gig jobs are scarce, when Uber or DoorDash salaries aren't enough to fill up, many sell off their belongings, withdraw their remaining savings to buy a used car, and live behind gas stations or on the edge of the city. They are not lazy, not irresponsible. They are just being excluded from an economy where there is no room for people who work hard but own nothing. From the elderly, single parents, veterans to unemployed workers, they are the pieces that once lifted America. Now, they share only one thing. Their roof has wheels, and their address changes every night. Under streetlights, RVs line up like caravans of an abandoned generation. People who still believe that just a few more miles away, they will find where they belong. But if the American dream once promised a roof for everyone, now tens of thousands of citizens are left with only a steering wheel to hold on to the feeling of being in control. And the question still hangs in the night. How could a nation once built from the promise of freedom let its most loyal people wander in a rusty car? In the heart of America, which once boasted of being the land of freedom, a bitter paradox is at play. Thousands of people are considered criminals just because they sleep in their own car. In Los Angeles, bright advertising lights reflect down long rows of dilapidated old RVs parked along the avenue, each a temporary home of people left behind by the economy. But instead of being assisted, they were asked to leave by the police, had tickets posted, or worse, was dragged off the only remaining mobile roof. In Los Angeles alone, there are over 10,000 people living in the car. But safe parking, programs where they are legally allowed to park overnight, are only enough to serve a very small portion. Meanwhile, between 2022 and 2024, the city towed or confiscated more than 2,000 RVs, making thousands of people literally homeless overnight. In Portland, the administration issued even stricter regulations. Parking at the same location is prohibited for more than 24 hours, forcing residents to constantly move to avoid fines. For those who no longer have money to refuel, it's like an invisible sentence of being unable to move every time they face the risk of losing their only remaining home. Increasingly, these bans are spreading. Some cities even issue a no habitation rule that prohibits sleeping, eating, or living in the car in any public area. Violators can be fined, documented, or forced to leave. For them, every nightfall is no longer a moment of rest, but a moment of extreme stress. chooses between hiding in the dark or venturing to sleep in a place with light. When they were driven from the city centre, they were forced to park in remote areas where there were no jobs, no clean water, no health clinics. The further out of the community's sight, the more they are pushed into danger zones. A 58-year-old woman who lives in an old van said that she often stays up all night for fear of strangers knocking on her door or peeping through her window. According to UCLA research, 42% of women living in vehicles have experienced harassment or stalking, and 1 in 5 have experienced physical threats. They don't dare call the police, because calling up means there could be additional fines or vehicle confiscation. Those laws, nominally let preserve urban order, actually turn poverty into illegal acts. Critics call this the criminalization of poverty, criminalizing poverty, when instead of solving the root of the problem, society punishes its consequences. People who are workers, veterans, or retirees now have to hide like criminals, just because they can't afford a fixed roof. The image of RV convoys being dragged away in broad daylight is like a wound in the heart of the city, cold, open, and alone. Meanwhile, hundreds of other cars still sneaking around in the night. Every headlight shining down on the road is a plea for peace, at least until tomorrow morning. A country that used to be built on the promise everyone has the right to pursue happiness now penalizes those who are trying to seek a place to sleep. Should a civilized society consider it a sin to seek shelter? And if freedom is only for those who can afford to rent a parking space, then what does free American mean to people living in darkness right in the middle of their homeland? In San Diego and Seattle, local authorities are testing a model called safe parking zones, areas where overnight parking is legal, with guards, toilets, clean water, and sometimes even social workers help people find permanent accommodation. At first glance, this seems to be a ray of light amidst the darkness, a way to help people living in the car breathe, at least for a few peaceful nights. But that light is as fragile as the flashlights they use to illuminate the way at night. These programs quickly became overloaded, and the waiting list was so long that many people had to wait months for a legal pass. Funding was constantly cut, making it impossible to expand the number of safe parking areas. Many places only have a few dozen places, while there are thousands of people in need. For most of them, safe parking is just a distant dream, an ironic concept, when safety itself becomes a luxury that has to be lined up to wait for their turn. In the opposite direction, some cities opt for a shorter and more ruthless path. Oakland, in just 2 years from 2022 to 2024, cleared more than 1,000 RVs from the streets. The sight of trailers carrying each mobile home stunned many people. But for the authorities, it was urban cleaning. For those who lose their cars, it's losing everything. Not only are they deprived of their homes, but they are also pushed away from areas with jobs, hospitals, or free food distribution points. On the map of America, the RV crisis is now like a ragged patch blanket. In some places, compassion remains, where local authorities and volunteer groups join forces to retain some of the dignity of the homeless. But elsewhere, there are cold, coercive policies, treating them as a danger to be eliminated. No coordination, no common direction. There is only a series of fragmented, adversarial and overlapping efforts. Each city acts in its own way, as if healing a giant wound with bandages. When a state opens a safe parking lot, the state next door passes a sleep ban in the car. When a town sets up a support station, another place conducts a clear campaign to clear the streets in front of visitors. As a result, thousands of people move like aimless flows, from one parking lot to the next, from small hopes to disappointments. People living in cars no longer expect miracles. They just need a clear and fair policy. But to date, America still does not have a comprehensive national solution to this crisis. No long-term planning, no stable budget, just spontaneous reactions. A type firefighting social. And just as all wounds are covered instead of being treated, it continues to bleed, silently, persistently. Among those temporary patches, one must ask oneself, is America trying to heal, or is it just covering each other's eyes with fragile bandages? And if one day, even those tiny patches are gone, can the already torn American dream still maintain its shape? Roads once seen as symbols of freedom have become temporary roofs for hundreds of thousands of Americans. When night falls, the old RVs lie silently on the sidelines of the silent highway. No more movement, no more music, only the sound of the wind lingering through the rusty doors. It is the gloomy image of an America that is slowing down, not because of lack of gasoline, but because of lack of trust. In-vehicle homelessness will continue to rise before it can stabilize, experts warn. Not because the people are lazy or give up, but because every element of modern life is working together against them. House prices are still high beyond income, while inflation has not cooled. The tenant protection policies that once helped millions of people avoid the risk of being evicted from have now been phased out after the pandemic. Each rent increase is like a new wave, sweeping more people to the bottom, forcing them to leave the apartments to stay temporarily in the car they call home. Now, America faces not just a housing crisis, but a humanitarian crisis. In the parking lots, a whole generation is seen caught between two eras, too poor to live as it used to, but also too self-respecting to ask for relief. A man in his 60s, who worked in the construction industry for 35 years, said he never imagined he would pass away in his car. "I helped build America's houses," he said, "and now America has no room left for me." Older RVs parked across states from California, Arizona to Nevada are more than just vehicles. They are mobile symbols of a dying dream. Every car is a piece of memory, a time when there was enough rent, a time when there was a sense of belonging. But now, that wheel is no longer running for a journey of discovery, but just to run away from the bill, from the prohibition, from the judgmental gaze. The American dream was once a promise that with effort, anyone can rise to, is now cracked by the fact that even working a lifetime is not enough to have a home. And when the generation that created America had to sleep in the car, the dream was no longer the future. It became a memory. A beautiful but heartbreaking memory, reminding that the nation that once rose from ashes is now letting its builders fall into oblivion. In the quiet darkness of the huge car parks, which used to be symbols of freedom and displacement, only the steady sound of aging engines now remains. No one talks about American dream as a promise. Now it's just a memory. Every RV lying idle on the roadside is an unspoken indictment of a country that once promised a roof for everyone, but now lets its citizens find shelter in rusty steel frames. No one wants to live like that. No one chooses a future where the roof has to start with the key. But when house prices far exceeded income, when protection policies were removed, and when compassion became as rare as cheap fuel, the RV became America's most honest symbol today. A dream forced to survive on four wheels. Can America restart, not with fuel, but with compassion? And if not, who will drive the last car of this dream? If you've ever seen RVs parked on the side of the road and wondered what's really going on, please share this video. Click, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Do you think the American dream can still be saved, or has it left the highway forever? This video was made with the purpose of analysing, reflecting, and eliciting social discussion. Not to offend, attribute or accuse any individual, organisation or agency. All data, quotes and figures in the video are compiled from public sources, independent reports and reputable press materials at the time of production. The contents that are expressed are judgmental and social commentary and can be expressed in a cinematic style to convey emotions and a multi-dimensional perspective.